Welcome to the LED Project podcast. My name is Kyle Krieger. This is episode 141, and I'm super thrilled to be joined by Esther Brunat. Esther, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am so good. I was so glad because we kind of connected through the Teachers Reboot conference.
Yes.
I was just so entertained and enlightened by your session on pettiness that I was like, oh man, I gotta have her on. So it was super fun. And the funny thing is you went on your Instagram to get to ask people like what they wanted me to ask you about. And you only got one response. So what was that one question that somebody wanted to ask you?
Okay, the one question somebody wanted to ask, which is totally ironic, like, because people are always talking to me, but then like I'd be like, yeah, so tell me what you guys want to know, and then like it's totally hit or miss. But let me tell you, when I asked about Trader Joe's things, people were on it. They were like, I have like 50 responses about what I should buy at Trader Joe's, but but I got one question, and the question was how to connect with kids who are disinterested. And you know what? That's not the first time I've been asked that question. And not to toot my own horn, but like I look at that kid like a challenge. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to figure you out. Like, you stay in that little corner, but I'm going to find you. So like I'll go figure out like what makes them tick, and I'll tell a cheesy joke like just to them while they're like doing their work, just to like, I just gotta get a smile. Like that's
Right.
Gonna be like my one mission. Like if I can get
Right.
you to smile, then I just feel like I've won. So I have some kids that are like, because I think it's different from being disinterested in like the subject, because my kids, I mean, who likes math? That's like not a thing. but as opposed to being disinterested in being involved in the class as a whole, like those are two things to me. So I can usually get a kid to be at least interested in being in class and socializing, at least just with me, maybe, if that's the case. But yeah, that's my tactic. I'll go find them at some inopportune time when they least expect it and try to get them to smile.
A little bit of public embarrassment, like just the
right. If it's rightly done, you could totally do it. Yeah.
Right. I remember one time one of my former students, this was when I was teaching sixth grade, and she had moved on to seventh grade, which is a different campus. And she was one of the shyest students I had, and they came back. She was in choir, and they came back. And they were like doing some Christmas thing for the at our school, and I was just like, Stephanie, it's me. And she just like was like, just totally. So I feel like in there. What age group do you teach?
I teach high school math.
Oh, what class?
Ninth grade, Algebra 1, mostly ninth graders and 10th graders. Probably about an even mix between the both.
Nice. So have you always taught high school? Is that kind of your bread and butter?
For the most part, yes. My first year of teaching, okay, so I did all my field experience in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I student taught in an 8th grade classroom. And when my teacher, what do you call those people? My professor, there we go, came to observe me. I think like my 50 hours, like the one that you do before you do student teaching.
Right.
She looked me in the eye, like the class was a hot mess. And she like looked me in the eye. She's like, you need to teach high school. Like she just.
Yeah. Just.
She's like, and I thought I wanted to teach middle school. So then my first year of teaching, I taught overseas my first 3 years of teaching in Panama City, Panama.
Wow.
At a tiny Christian school. And I taught 7th and 8th grade pre-algebra my first year. And all I did was complain to my assistant principal, get me out of middle school. This one class. Like all the rest of my classes were high school classes because it was such a small school. So I was like the math teacher.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I had one period of middle school my first year of teaching, and that was it.
How was Panama? I guess it's not like, I mean, I know it's down there in Central America, but it's not like one of the Central American countries that gets talked about a lot.
It doesn't, but it really should. Like, uh, you almost, so if you've spent any time in Miami, like, Panama is like being in Miami because everybody speaks Spanish and English. Like, there's a lot of culture, but the city part of Panama is like really like first world, like skyscrapers,
Right.
resorts, like a boardwalk where people are like biking, and there's 5Ks around every corner, like on the weekends. Like,
Right.
it's so, there's a coffee shop everywhere. So it's a really, I loved it. I love the students I had those first 3 years still keep in contact with me. I'm going to a wedding this summer of one of them. Like,
Wow.
it's, I mean, it was like my glory days. I say that to people all the time. Like,
Right.
it was so cool. It was the best experience ever.
Were you born and raised in Florida?
I was born in Massachusetts. I was raised in Florida. We moved here probably when I was 3 years old.
No.
So I'm Floridian. Don't
You're
don't bring me to the cold. Like, I've been to visit my family in Massachusetts a few times in the winter, and if I don't have to, I won't. That's,
you're not going up to do Christmas in Massachusetts?
next year my cousins are talking about it, and I'm really trying to stir us away from this plan.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For
So
sure. So your session at Reboot was so like funny and engaging, but to the point, like I when I look back on what you called things that were petty, like I did all kinds of petty things. So can you explain a little bit for people that might not have seen that session, like what it was about and why you think being petty, as you say, petty on purpose is important?
okay, so um basically, like, my whole session is how you can use humor in the classroom to your advantage. And it's about like how humor is totally a classroom management tool, but that's like, it's hard to teach. It's how do you like write a textbook on using humor?
Right.
Like, it's like impossible. Not impossible, but it's unheard of, I should say. But so many people are doing this, using your personality to connect with your students. And so I basically had a session where I explained some of the stuff that I do in my classroom to diffuse behavior sometimes. So if a kid's having an off day, some things that I say to them, like whoop eating your Cheerios, because you can't not laugh at something like that. You just can't. Like, it's instant reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So there were situation diffusers like that, things to say to kids who might make an off-color comment or something like that. And then there was like how to stop things from happening, being petty on purpose, how to stop things from happening that happen all the time in the classroom, like, and make yourself laugh and the kids laugh about it. So I would talk about like my petty passes, like my kids would come back from the bathroom and the pass would be wet, or it would get lost. So then I just made a huge B and I was like, this is your bathroom pass from now on. Like, you have to carry this around. And they hated it, but they also love
Right. Right.
it.
Right. So to your point on humor,
Mhm.
like, do you think it's just that some people are more naturally in tune with humor? Because I think we both met people that just like no matter how hard they try, they just don't quite get it or they're not funny.
Right.
But maybe coming into that, what part does humor play in your like overall personality? Because I think that's maybe like a little bit more of the point, is that you have to be authentic to who you are.
Yes.
And like if I said some of the things that you say, like it probably would come off way different and would have a different connotation.
I would completely agree with that, because sometimes that might not come naturally to you, like the way something might be said. Like I could totally get away with 1,000 things that somebody else might not. And as opposed to the opposite, somebody else would say some stuff. And if I tried to say that, it would like not come off really good really good at all. And that's part of your personality and knowing who you are and who your kids are also,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And to play off of that, because the culture in every classroom is unique. You know, no matter what, like the vibe between the teachers and the students is always going to be different.
Right. So, you know, maybe a more concrete thing that we could talk about is how you, besides just using humor, what other ways do you really engage with students and build that relationship? Because, you know, like the thing is, humor works when you have a relationship with somebody, but you can't just walk up to a rando person and like say a joke. I mean, because I've found that the best humor is that stuff that's got just like a little bit of innuendo in it. There's like that little bit of hidden, like we know this and nobody else does.
Right, exactly. There's like a little inside thing here, you know. Repeat the question one more time. I lost it. I had a train of thought and then it just left.
So basically, you using humor and other texts, you know, what are the texts you use to really get to know your students and to get them to open up back to you?
Okay, so this year for the first time, I started writing goals with my kids. So at the beginning of the school year, we wrote some goals. And I like to write goals. And I guess I just took it for granted that like people just don't know how to write goals. And of course I learned how to write goals. I don't know when, but it's probably some class in college. But like kids don't know how to write goals. Like, and I'll be like, okay, what do you want to do better? And they'll be like, I want to get better grades. Okay, but put some like strategy behind that for me, please.
Right.
How are you going to do that? You know, I want to be better at basketball. How are you going to be better at basketball? What does that mean? Does that just poof into the thin air? One of my kids today, so I had them write goals at the beginning of the school year, and then today also at the beginning of the new year, because it's the first time that I said this. And one of my kids wrote down on their paper, I want to clear my skin of acne. And I said, listen, if that was a valid goal, everyone would have clear skin. Like, you can't say that. You've got to, like, what are you going to? And he was like, okay, I'll drink more water. And I was like, there you go. Like,
That's better.
There's a practical step behind that. So we started writing goals this year. At the end of every quarter, I give them an end of quarter survey. I just started that this year also. So I'll just ask them like a few random questions. So I'll make them rate the last quarter, like out of 5 stars, like how do they feel, you know, and they'll give, you know, 5 or 4 or 3 or 2, whatever they feel. And then I ask, this time I asked, tell me your favorite thing to do over winter break. And then I always ask, what is something that we've done in class that's helped you learn? What is something that you don't like about class? Everybody said that I make them put their cell phones away because they hate that. And then what's your favorite part about class? So some really generic questions about that. And they type a sentence or two. It takes them 3 minutes, literally. That was the average time, it told me. So, I mean, the kids, it's just a way for kids to feel like seen and heard, you know?
Right.
So I did that. My first couple of years, like especially when I was in Panama, I went to so many games, like soccer games, basketball games, like all of it. I've been to quite a few. I went to a few football games this year for the first time. This is my 4th year at my school. This is the first time this year was the first year that I went to football games. I went to basketball games last year. And some baseball games like a year before that. Because usually, like, because I have 125 students, it's a lot of kids now.
Mm-hmm.
So if a kid like goes out of their way to like say, hey, Ms. Brown, I have a game, like you should come, then I'll try my best to like work it into my schedule. That's a game changer, like pun intended. The kids are, I mean, they're like, whoa, you took time out of your, like, totally different. What else do I do to that thing that you said about like the insider thing, like that jokes have to have like some kind of inside. So if I know something about a kid, like I'll try to make sure I follow up about that thing with them. So one of my kids works at, Publix around the corner. So I'll try to go find him if I'm at my Publix, or if I know that they work somewhere that I frequent, then I'll try to like see if I can find them when I'm on my way there. Or just asking them when they're next to me, asking me for help on a question. I'll be like, yo, so how was that game? Or how was work? Did you get that job you were looking for? It's just like, it's a lot of intentional, but try not to overthink it, but also being like really intentional about me and that kid I know that one little thing about that kid. How can I have more conversations about it, because just that one little question or just that one little mention I think it just makes them feel seen and feel heard. So
yeah, and the crazy thing was, and I've told this story a few times on the podcast, like when I was in college, like my professors really almost preached that you keep distance from your kids.
Yes.
Like there should be this, I'm a teacher here and you're a student down here kind of vibe. But for me, that didn't work, because the relationships with the kids and having fun like that was my favorite part of the job. Mm-hmm. And secondly, and it seems like maybe it's just that I'm getting older, but it seems like the kids more and more are like craving connection, and like you're not getting anything done without it.
Yeah, I would completely wholeheartedly agree with that. Like without question. It seems like that's the barrier that you have to cross before you can ever get into any curriculum almost.
But so we know this as teachers. I think we intrinsically know this. So why are we being told like that content is so important when you like realize you have to jump that barrier first?
Right. I don't know. I just saw a tweet that said, like, two people affirming this, that were like, I don't remember, and these were educators, that said, I don't remember a single lesson I was taught K through 12, but you want to know what I remember? My teachers, like the personalities
right.
that were given. And then the other thing is, I tell this story all the time. The one time I can remember being taught a little bit about relationship was in my classroom management class. And granted, my professor, she was also the math professor, so I knew her pretty well. And it was her first time teaching whatever it's called, classroom management. And I think it might have been the only time she taught it too. And there was a book called The Caring Teacher. And she was like, there's like two schools of thought, about caring. Like, do you think caring is a valid classroom management tip or whatever, or strategy? And I remember this one guy in the back was like adamant, like, absolutely not. There's no way you're ever going to convince me that caring is a valid way. Like, he was really, but I was like, I'm curious. Like, I wasn't going to say anything because I was just curious as to where she was going with this. And she was like, okay, so then she goes, think about your favorite teacher in your head. So everybody thinks about their favorite teacher. And then she took stories. Why is this your favorite teacher? Why is this your favorite teacher? Why is this your favorite teacher? And then sure enough, nobody mentioned anything about science. Nobody mentioned anything about World War I. Everybody mentioned about how the teacher was cool, or how this teacher connected with them, or how this teacher, like, nobody remembers that stuff,
Yeah, and it's crazy too. My buddy that I normally do the podcast with, wasn't available this afternoon. We had a mutual student who's now, I think, a sophomore, who messaged us on Instagram and said, I got this letter from Harvard that they want me to come to a conference this summer for future doctors, something and something. Like a teacher of his nominated him, and he was asking us, like, does this seem legit? Like, is this, or is somebody trying to scam me to send them money? And we got into it, and it was like super real. And the kid's in downtown Houston. So he's like, I don't know if I can pay. So we're like, don't worry about that. Like, we'll find you money. But like,
exactly.
But like that for that kid to have reached out to us and just to have said like, hey, I got accepted to go to a conference at Harvard this summer for a week.
That's awesome.
And it was just so crazy to think that like the kid's a 10th grader now. We had him as a 6th grader.
Yeah.
And for him to reach out to us to say, hey, like I've got this situation. I on the one hand, he didn't know what to do, but on the other hand, he's like, I don't think I can pay for it because it's like $1,800 without the flight.
Wow.
To go, but we just go like, don't worry about that. There's money to be had for stuff like that. So, but it's so crazy to think that
you said you had him in 6th grade.
Yeah,
he's a sophomore, so we're talking 5 years ago.
Yeah,
that's pretty dope.
And those are the rewarding parts, but I just think back to early in my career when I got so bogged down with content that I lost sight of like the relationship piece. Because some of the most fun times I had, like some of the best relationships I had were with kids that I never had in class. They were kids that I saw. They were kids that I saw in the hallway or in the cafeteria, or kids that I coached in sports. But like to your point about like showing up and stuff, it's not just the kid who asked you to show up that's affected.
Yeah.
Like all the other kids that are at the game that see you there or that see you there, like, oh yeah, that's cool.
That's very true.
So. Oh man, I'm trying to think. What else you want to talk about? We're talking about education.
Gosh, I know. Where are you at in your education career? That's what I want to know. I've been wondering that for a second.
So I grew up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then my first year out of college was 2008, 2009 when like the market crashed.
Oh man.
So I substitute taught my first year.
That's when I graduated high school, if that makes you feel any better.
That makes me feel really old. That makes me feel super old. So when I subbed for a year and then I moved to Houston for 8 years. And then I just moved back to Wisconsin summer of 2017. I had a job at a high school and then I got non-renewed, which basically is like, hey, we don't want you to come back. And then
But did you love it? Did you love high school? I'm trying to gather some more people who really love high school.
I did love high school. I didn't fit well with the culture of the school. But I had chances where I could have gone other places and looked for jobs, but my girlfriend is right here and my nephews and my family are right here. So I decided to stay, and I've just been kind of working an odd landscaping job to make do this year until I can get back in the classroom. But my buddy and I, Wilkie, like everything we do is out of our nonprofit. So we've had a nonprofit 3 years now that we do like, mostly it's just this podcast that we do. That's like the main thing we do right now to help teachers. But it's just so crazy because it just started with conversations between us.
Right.
All of that stuff. And it was when we had that kid, that was when we started our nonprofit. So like we've been doing it that long, and I'm excited to, and I don't feel bad saying this. I taught in Houston. So I taught low income schools, high ELLs, and I really enjoyed it because I felt like there was so much more room to support kids.
Yeah.
And I came back to a kind of borderline rural suburban. Basically I'm 45 minutes from Minneapolis, St. Paul. So it looks rural, but it's more suburban than people think, like predominantly white school. And I just didn't fit. I don't think there were a lot of things that were very cookie cutter. And when I didn't like the way the cookie was cut, I didn't necessarily get along, but I'm excited after a semester off and the spring. I was lucky to have a friend who could hook me up with a job because it was like I was going to sub.
Right.
But then my buddy was like, hey, my friends have this landscaping company. You can work for them for a while. And then they were like, hey, if you come work for us full time, we'll pay for your insurance. So then I was like, well, I can't turn down that choice. But I mean, there's,
Cool.
yeah,
So you've had this podcast for how many years?
this is we just started our third year.
Whoa. And tell me your favorite part about talking to teachers.
My favorite part, I just, I don't want to be selfish and say the affirmation.
Okay.
I think that's what I lacked a lot when I was teaching, to just be like, hey, we're on, like, there's somebody else that's on the same page with me.
Yes.
And I think there's maybe the other thing kind of too, like with this is in 2009, when I started, there wasn't like this strong online teacher community.
Right. Of course.
And now it's just, I feel like, and the other thing, I've grown, like I didn't know what white privilege was like as a term until like a year ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't even start to comprehend and understand and unpack. And I think, I think that's probably the other favorite part is, and it's so crazy because I feel like I've grown so much this year, like away from like I grew as a teacher, but like I've grown so much as a person to just keep having conversations and like meeting cool people. And, not like now I went to Teach Your Heart Out, and I'll be back at the, yeah, it's the best.
That's
It's
awesome.
the best. It's the best. Actually, there's, we're doing there's a Teach Your Heart Out cruise that's going out of Miami.
There is. I saw that.
You should go. You should go.
I think I'm going to be in France. Woe is me.
That's good too. But I think just meeting and connecting and,
I mean,
like having fun.
I went to the Teachers Pay Teachers Conference, and I am not a big PTer, okay? I just literally went because I was just trying to see what there was to see, basically. And the amount, I mean, to say that my heart was full at the end of those 4 days was like, I mean, people who you only saw online and then you got to meet in person and you got to break bread with them. Like, and you were so like-minded and it was like we had known each other. I remember the last day that I was there, like hours before I left, a bunch of us skipped the last session and we were just hanging out. Right. And by a table, and everybody was just sharing their heart. I mean, tears with people who you had never met before. Like, just the intense just unity that you felt because you all have this thing in common that you educate, And to me, I left with my heart full. I left being much more like wanting to make resources, and it just made you want to be better. So I totally sympathize with this like meetup thing. And I know some people like throw shade at it because you're like, all these people do is just go meet each other. And I'm like, it was worth it. Like,
oh yeah, and that's the thing too. And we have interviewed 93 teachers in the last year.
Wow.
And I would bet 80 of them we met through Instagram.
What?
And it was just simply like, hey, I'm going to reach out and send you a message. Like this guy who's a marketer, his name's Gary V. He's got all these videos on YouTube. He's just like, people are connecting through Instagram DM. And I was like, okay, I'll DM you. And, but like you said, when you go and you get to meet people, and like I said, you meet people and some of it is just like, hey, we just meet for like a couple minutes. But there's been 5, 6, 7 people that we've gotten super, super close with, that we're in contact with on like a regular basis. And it's so incredible. And I think what we want our podcast to be is just like to take this conversation and have everyone hear it. Yes. Like not every teacher, but like everyone, so that, because the overwhelming majority of teachers are unbelievable. They're amazing, but for some reason we don't get a lot of love from society.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that is why it's important for people to be able to feel like, I'm not the only one out here. who still has, hope, or who still is like trying to, make a difference and
Right.
stuff like that. So I completely agree. Because when I fell into the online community last year, I was just like, I did not realize that it was
Yeah.
something I needed. Like, I didn't realize
Yeah.
I was craving something a little bit different, or just an
Mhm.
outlet to share. You didn't realize it, and once you do, it's like game over.
Yeah, I mean, because it can, and I don't know if you felt this, but there have been times where I felt super, super isolated teaching, to where I just was like in my own little silo. Because I've been in some schools where the culture wasn't great,
Mm-hmm.
so I tried to just kind of insulate myself and protect myself. But it's not a good life plan. But
Right.
with this community, but the greatest thing is you can connect with people who are doing all sorts of different things, like. And the other good thing is too, like, you and I, like, have not I mean, other than we're teachers, we don't have a lot in common probably, but
Right.
we literally just figured this out like 3 days ago.
Yeah, and we made it work.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many of those conversations we've had where it's like, you feel like we've known each other forever. Like,
Yeah, we're friends.
but I think, like you said, it's that bond that you have over this profession, and that desire to like really make a difference, that I think it's just that common ground that creates that space.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Man,
I love it so much.
crazy. Oh, I'm so jazzed. And like the fun, like you said, the funnest part is like, I just get to, it's funny because I've been working on renewing my Minnesota teaching license for the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to just be like, and the lady who I've been working with has been less than pleasant.
Oh my gosh.
By less than pleasant, she's been extremely rude.
Oh gosh.
So I just want to be like, you know what, lady, go to this website, take this link. There's everything I've done for the last 2 years. We legitimately have 100 hours of content. I'm gonna
Wow.
be like, then you find that and you just give me my license back.
There you go.
But
Right.
I
Why do
mean,
you see all of this? Like, what are
it's
you
just,
testing right now?
it's so fun. It is so fun. But oh man, we definitely are gonna have to set you up again sometime soon, so Wilkie can come on and we can like talk math and strategies and that stuff.
Oh, is he a math teacher? Wait,
Yeah, sixth grade.
what kind of teacher are you?
I'm
What?
social studies by trade.
Ah, okay, gotcha. And he's a math teacher. Oh,
Hmm.
my
Yeah,
people.
yeah. We he and I met. We taught on the same team
Gotcha.
for 3 years. So yeah, he's still in Houston, living the life, teaching sixth grade math.
I love it. I love
Work
it.
working on his doctoral or working on a doctoral program. So
I would totally get a doctorate if somebody wanted to pay for it.
you know what the crazy thing about it though is, if you look in the right places, you can find it.
That's true. People do tell me that too. Maybe I want somebody to pay for it and find me.
Okay, excuse me, internet world. I just want everyone to know that Esther is looking for someone to finance her doctorate program.
There you
Where
go.
do you where do you want to go? Let's just be really clear. Do you want to go to Brown? Do you want to go to Harvard? Do you want
Oh my
to?
gosh. If Harvard, that's too much pressure.
Well, and it's probably too cold up there too.
Right. I need something down here. So FAU, that's the school, that's Florida Atlantic University.
Hmm.
Go Owls. Let's just do that, guys.
All right. So Esther's looking for someone to finance her doctorate at FAU. Uh, yeah. If you want to buy her a new car too, whatever.
And a house. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Do you have higher degrees?
I don't.
Me either. I'm a bachelor's. That's it.
I've never felt like there was a program that
Mm.
that really like would increase like what I was capable of, especially because we've been working on this nonprofit going on 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's just, I've been doing so much of that I don't, right now I don't feel like there's an advanced degree that really puts me anywhere farther.
Yeah.
Now, I would never say that it wasn't something that I would think about and would want to do. I haven't found the right program in the right situation. And now I'm starting to budget money for an engagement ring. And then I got to budget money for a wedding. And,
oh my gosh, is this news to the podcast? Like, have they ever heard it before? Or is this exclusive?
they might not have actually heard that.
Oh my gosh, we brought it to you here first.
Oh my God. Oh. Dude, like that's the epitome of right there being petty. Like that's so funny.
I feel honored right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, dude, this is so fun. We should just have you on every single week.
When this episode comes out, I'm gonna hype it up so much. I'm gonna be like, guys, you guys swipe up, go listen to this episode. There's exclusive content that's coming.
Oh yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing Brittany doesn't listen.
Well, congrats! I'm so excited.
Thank you. It's just, it's like we're not engaged. I've been told I have to wait like 4 or 5 months till we get engaged, even though we've like already talked about getting engaged. And
her nails done if she's that kind of girl.
you know the crazy part about it is though, like apparently around the Twin Cities, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, like fall of 2020 is already booking for like all of these venues. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's bonkers.
I believe that without question.
Crazy.
All of that. The wedding business is for real.
You know what? I know Brittany doesn't listen to this, so I can tell you this and we can tell the world. But she's like, I really want to be surprised when you ask me. Maybe I'll do a podcast and like ask her over the podcast.
Can you please?
She would be
like, I don't know what you're waiting for.
This is gonna be so funny. And like I said, my girlfriend's unbelievable. I really am very certain she doesn't listen to this. So, but this would probably be the one that she would listen to. Right. But no.
Let me go support my boyfriend real quick. Let me just listen to this last episode. Then she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, you're gonna."
I can't believe you're talking about me on the internet. But no. Oh.
I love all of that. I fully support you, my friend.
Yeah, awesome. Well, maybe we can start like scheming with all the teachers on the internet and come up with like, because she's like, I don't want it to be at a game or a concert or on a holiday or on my birthday.
Wow. So she's got parameters for you.
Yeah, very, very. She is very.
I love it.
Very fine there. So, all right. Before this gets out of hand.
I know, right?
Out of hand. For people that want to connect with you, find you, pay attention to all the fun stuff that you do, where can they find you?
They can mostly find me on IG. So my first name and my last name, Esther Brunat, ESTHERBRUNAT. That's where most of the things happen. You can catch me on Twitter at the same handle, being snarky. So I'm just warning you now, you're not going to find anything legit there. You're just gonna find me being snarky. Sometimes my Instagram content gets pushed to Facebook. I don't really know what goes on over there in the Facebook world. I just know that Instagram makes me have it, and then that's basically how that works. I am on. Don't go to YouTube. Just don't. Like, it's not done yet. Like it's we're working.
That's okay. We're doing the same. Like we're in the same boat. Like we've been trying to. Right now, our podcast goes out on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. But we've been trying to like push it out to these other servers. But like all of them want to charge us like $15 a month to be on there. So we decided we're going to really try to push the YouTube thing.
Yes.
But I don't do video editing.
Well, you can just put this up there, right?
Yeah.
There.
Oh, that for sure. That's exactly.
I hear a lot of people just watch videos. Like, I mean, not just listen to videos. Like, I
Yeah.
heard that's the thing. Like, people just put their phone. That's not the way I use.
Oh, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll just be tempted. Like, I have to stare at you. If there's something going on over there, I feel like I need to look at
For
it. But
sure.
people just listen like that.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad we got to connect. And I will say unequivocally that anytime you want to be on our podcast, you can. All you got to do is just send me a message.
Ah, that's so nice.
You have free reign, and any person who you think would be good for the podcast, you could send our way. We would appreciate it as well.
For sure, Kyle. If I think of anybody, I'll be like, y'all got to interview them. It'll be a good time for both of you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast, Esther. It was, I got to say, it's in like the top 3 of the most fun podcasts I've ever done.
Oh, don't say that.
It is. It is. I won't lie. Yeah, I won't lie.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Kyle. And I will catch you on the gram.